Today I got Pono Pau joining me. Power Slap, Road to the Title 3. Striker, how you doing, my man?
I'm doing good, Corey. What's going on?
Doing really good. Let's get into it. We've seen you there in round one, but I know there's a lot of the backstory of this, and we talked about before getting on here. Power Slap gives us a snippet, maybe 20, 30 seconds of your backstory. We get to know a little bit about you, but on here today on Slap News, I want to get into the greater details and actually just so people really know the life and who you are outside of the table, because I think it's just as important that people know who you are, your motivations, and what got you here as to seeing what you do up there on the stage. So let's bring it back to the early years. Tell me where you grew up and what your family life was like.
So I'm originally from Oahu, Hawaii, born and raised on the North Shore of Oahu. Lived in a small town called Haula, and just my family upbringing was more of my mom and dad. My mom worked as a park and recreation person, so she would take care of all the local parks around the area. My dad, worked his way up to being a master plumber for a company called Hawaiian Mechanical. But my big backstory for that is that that we came from humble beginnings. My mom and my dad, we had a rough start. We kind of lived on the lower end of things. Try to just kind of skim by and make it through life. And the biggest thing about them is that they were able to put their time and their effort into us and kind of try to develop us as growing up. I have two older siblings, my brother Robert and my sister Sunny, and they spent a lot of their time, even going to elementary school, high school. They spent a lot of their time taking care of me because I was the smaller one and the youngest one in the family house.
Mm-hmm.
So we in the very beginning, it was tough to understand. I'm a young kid at the time and kind of just looking at it as not something as serious as it was. We lived on the beach for a little while and had our little troubles here and there. And my mom and my dad was able to really dial it in and really kind of provide a safe living for us. I didn't have a really rough childhood, but as it progressed, we kind of like watched things happen within the household that kind of broke the family bond a little bit here and there. And no, not to dive really deep into it, but you see that. I mean, it's common amongst families like that. It's just the stress of life kind of just hitting, and the only way that we can respond to it is by having problems, right? Things happening along the way. So, my dad was a alcoholic in the very beginning of his life, and he, I think he answered a lot of his problems with that. My mom, constantly getting into arguments with my dad, and that just seeing that in the household kind of it gives you uh almost like a broken family type of feel. But I mean, other than that, it was less than that. It was more of my mom and my dad was just going through those times just to try to make good for us and try to make us be better versions of ourselves. So the sacrifice was there. They put a lot of time and effort into us, into the growth of us. And my brother, became successful in his life, did all the things that he needed to do. My sister did the same way. And then here, lo and behold, here comes Pono Pau, right? trying to make it successful too in life. But yeah, we, born and raised on a small town and on the North Shore of Oahu. And the life was more of like, that real laid back islander. I mean, the beach is a rock throw away from where we were, so where we were living. So a lot of it has to do with kind of just living off the land and really just enjoying life the way it was. I mean, there's struggles here and there, but I mean, it definitely shaped who I am and what I've done in my life, since then, since the growth. So
Yeah. Talk to me a little bit about the culture and the mentality, because I'm trying to really understand this, because, obviously there's the aloha culture, very laid back, very passive. I know family, to every Hawaiian I've ever spoken to, family is, the utmost priority. But I also feel that everyone I speak to has a bit of a chip on their shoulder. They feel like they're the underdog. Is that true?
true.
But why?
I feel like it's just I would say it's just the position that we, I think it's the that we're put in. It's it's more of like, okay, well, we really don't have that much kind of growing up in life, and we make with what we have, and everybody just carries that chip on their shoulder. It's, you see a lot of things. It's kind of normalized that, like, there's domestic violence in the house. There's things that happen in the house. It's a common thing for Islanders, and then I feel like that right there is a foundational platform for us to, take in that aspect of like, okay, well, we gotta try to improve ourselves. Like, why are we in these situations, and then why are we going through these things, and culturally, I mean, a lot of families in Hawaii have gone through that, like, just the suffering, sometimes homelessness, people living on the beach for a little while, people, obviously losing their process and their thoughts of what they should be doing in life, and we kind of dabble into other things, and it's a big thing for Hawaiian families to try to like keep that bond together. We want to try to build each other up within the family and try to really like be there for one another, and I think over time, just because we're naturally human beings, is that things
Mhm.
start to fall off here and there, but the culture itself is all about ohana. It's about family, about building the bond between everybody and try to keep everybody together, whether you're family or whether you're not, and you'll see it a lot on the show, is that I really reach out to other people, not just because of that, they're there with me on the show. It's more of like, man, I want to understand what's your purpose and why you're here, and what brought you here, and the things that you've went through also. So, we all
Mhm.
have a story to share, and the culture of Hawaii is that we share stories, all of our past experience, things that we do, and then hopefully in the greater hopes of making it to where we can overcome those things one day. So I
Mhm.
feel like the culture is like that. We have a real solid warrior spirit. So it's more of like, hey, you know what are some of the best things that you can do to better yourself and better the people around you, and to keep the family bond a lot stronger. And I feel like the Hawaiian culture, represents that. Is that we try to stay real tight knit with each other. Even if we're on an island, right?
Mhm.
That's all we know is the island. You don't know anything outside of that. I didn't know anything until I moved to San Diego and to California. I only thought like, okay, well, I live on this small little island, and the people around me are the people that are the closest to me, and that's going to become my family, and that's the only people that I really think about. And the islander life is the only thing you really know. So it's like it kind of shuts down a lot of opportunities for you to kind of like open your mind and expand to other things, and also shuts a lot of things out. Like the process of kind of going back into like the culture and why we're like this, is that like the process of the healing. Like finding the outlet for things that kind of come into our life, and we don't expand it, and
Mhm.
and then we end up falling into the same cycle, doing the same things over. It's just repetitiveness, and I kind of have to have a little bit of guidance. Somebody in the family always represents the person that kind of guides you in your way. So like my mom is like that. You could tell she has the real strong presence. It's just like myself on the show. She has a strong presence. She does as much as she can to help whoever she can. Doesn't matter if you're family, if you're not. She's always there to give a helping hand to anybody. And I really feel like that's the Hawaiian culture. Is like we never leave anybody behind. We're all
Mhm.
about family. We try to stick together as much as possible, because we know that as in unison, you know, people grow a lot faster. You grow up,
Mhm.
you're able to have somebody to watch your back, to take care of you, and
Mhm.
kind of push you through life, that makes you're on the right path. So
Yeah.
that's the Hawaiian culture.
I hear you. I'm gonna ask you one more question, Ronnie, because I think we can actually relate in different ways. So, like, I grew up in a very small town, 10,000 people in northern Ontario. And when I grew up, you either had one of two mentalities. It was either you were stuck in that small town for the rest of your life and you couldn't get out of it, and you were just a rat race working for minimum wage, or you dreamed and you aspired to go to the big city. So Toronto, Canada, the biggest city in Canada, would be similar to like going to New York in the United States. You either had one of those two mentalities. Was it kind of similar for you growing up in Hawaii? Was it either I'm going to be stuck here for the rest of my life, this is all I know, or I need to move to the mainland for the opportunity that exists?
Yes, yes, and that's how it originally starts. Is that feeling of like, okay, well, I've been here all my life, and don't see it going any further than what it already was presenting itself. So
Mm-hmm.
gotta find other opportunities, and it was like that with my older brother. He found the opportunity to join the military, be in the Navy. Navy kind of got him to expand his mind and go to different places, put him in different situations, and then transition back to, okay, now that I've done that experience, now it's time to come back to the family, to bring the family. Because my older brother, he moved my mom, my dad, and myself here to San Diego to try to better our lives, just because having that same mentality that it's just a
Mm-hmm.
small island. There's not so much that's it's gonna provide, and that we gotta start doing an expansion. We gotta start going to different places that we can do better for
Mm-hmm.
ourselves.
Yeah. I know you've touched on the show that you haven't always made the best decisions in life. Can we expand on that a little bit and kind of the psyche of where you were at in your life that kind of led you down that path?
Yeah. So like I said, my childhood was really, really good. I have an older brother, older sister that really kind of took on the parent role too, outside of like my mom and my dad, that kind of watched over me and kind of helped me grow. Once I've made it into more high school, that was obviously more influence and more people that you're meeting, and I just wasn't really interested in school as much. I mean, I was book smart. I had all the education from my mom, but she's a teacher in many ways, so kind of teaching me all the stuff about math, school, English, everything you could possibly think of, and you kind of get into the rebellious stage of like it with school and everything else. It's more of like, do I really have to be here? I'd rather just be hanging out with my friends or doing something completely different, and I started going down the wrong path. I dropped out of school when I was in 11th grade, and my mom really pushed for me to stay in school, and I just told her, it's like, what, I really don't want to do this with my life. It's like I'm having, I mean, being at a young age too. It's just I just don't want to go to school. It's like, it's ridiculous. I'm book smart. I know I can do my homework. I just never turn it in. I had that real like lazy, laid back mentality of like, this is not what I want to do with the rest of my life. And my mom, as much as she tried to push school and just like, hey, you know what, you need your education, you need to be smart about everything, you got to make better decisions. I still went down that pathway of like, yeah, I don't need this in my life. I started to do more criminal things like stealing and getting into trouble and fighting. There's a lot of not going to school, just making the most bad decisions you could think of, just kind of being rebellious at a point in time. And it didn't turn around until later on down in life. So my upbringing was more of like, man, just running into a lot of trouble. So I went to boys home really early and spent some time there. uh my mom then came to come get me from boys home, and it's like, I probably was in there for like a month, and he said, hey, you know what, have you learned your lesson from all the things that has been going on with you? And it's like, no, you know what, just leave me here. And it's like, I'll just stay here. So I think at an early age I felt comfortable being in that negative state where it's just like, oh, okay, well, this is normal for me. This is something that like I can relate to the people that are here. A lot of people are broken when they end up in boys home and they don't have any kind of guidance. And it's like, I fall suit perfect right here with everybody else. It's like they became, a lot of the people that were in that boys home became part of my friendship circle and my family, because they're like, yeah, well, you know what, we go through the same things too, brother, and we're here just with you. It's like we all make bad decisions, and I just normalized that. After a while, I just thought that was the thing to do. I just start running into little things where it's like, later on down the line, jail becomes a normal thing for me. It's like, oh yeah, well, I go there, and like just like Boys Home. Went to Boys Home for a little while. Oh, okay, well, just leave me here. I'll do fine here. And same thing later on. It's like I'm in and out of jail, always into problems, having the a really violent side to me where I'm just angry at the world for no reason. Not knowing that now, right? I'm just angry at the world
Mhm.
for no reason. But back in the day, I could never explain it. I was just mad at everything. Anything that came my way, it was like I answered it with aggression, and it's like, oh, okay, well, you tell me to do this, I'll just keep on doing the opposite. And it's like, oh, this is the right path. Well, I'll just go the other way, and that really kind of it it put a lot of wear and tear on who I was. I wasn't able to change anything until I really started opening up my mind about like man, are you making the right decisions? Is it the right choices? You really start to think about the things that you do in life and how it impacts not just yourself but other people. And that's where I make the big turnaround is like stop thinking of that selfish mindset about myself and like, oh man, like you put on a victim mentality at a point in time in life when it's like that, and it's like, oh, well, this thing's always happened to me. Why does it always happen to me? And it's like, well, why not? These things are things. They're a product of what you create. You created that. You put
Mhm.
yourself in the mindset. You put yourself in that predicaments. You chose to go the wrong way. It's like everything starts with you. It branches off from you. So um when I turn 25, right, 26, I moved from Hawaii to San Diego because my
Mhm.
brother is, saying, hey, you know what, there's not that much opportunities there in Hawaii. You need to start expanding yourself. Come out here. We'll help you out. We'll get you started. We'll get you on your feet. You don't have to worry about anything on our side. You live with us. We'll take care of you, and we can kind of, point you in the right direction. And then that's where I feel like I made my turning point to start to make good decisions, and
Mhm.
then I immediately make a bad decision. I end up in jail for transporting drugs, right? Taking stuff and moving things around throughout the U.S. And I started off with a job in Delta, working for the airlines, and I made a bad decision. I made a good decision by getting the job and trying to better myself. Made a bad
Mhm.
decision by meeting certain people and taking on that persona of like, well, this is what I have to do to kind of make my ends meet, right? I can't just do the normal 9 to 5, making 1550 an hour and really not doing. I need to start making money. I need to start figuring out how I'm gonna like progress in life. This is
Mhm.
not where this stops me. And sadly, the bad decisions usually end up in the result of more money, right? And then at the end of the day, it's like, you get into trouble and you end up in the situation that you are, and then you realize, well, look, that bad decision made it even worse for your life instead of it making better for your life.
Mhm.
Chasing something that you thought was the right idea wasn't the really right it wasn't the right idea to go down, wasn't the right path to go down.
Mhm.
You make your rash decision immediately thinking that it's going to solve your problem, and then without the thinking, without the repercussion, without anything that you like, oh, okay, this is going to happen to me after, you just kind of gung-ho it. So I make that bad decision immediately, and it puts me in a spiral where
Mhm.
um I'm sorry for
Yeah.
just stopping and pausing, but it's like
All good.
it hits hard because
Yeah.
I have a daughter that's 16 years old. Her name is Sensi, and I had a previous relationship before I moved here to the states, and it it didn't go the way that I thought it would go, and a lot of the decisions was made off of not being able to be there for my daughter, and really saying to myself like, I'm not a responsible parent. I'm young. I'm 20 something years old, 21 years old at the time, and I'm just doing all the wrong things with life. How am I supposed to be able to take care of a little girl? How am I supposed to be able to manage a family? This is not me. I can't do all this stuff, and I think I got overwhelmed at a really young age, and
Mhm.
and um and just made the stupidest decisions of my life. It,
Yeah.
it really it just impacted me and put me in a bad place. I ended up leaving Hawaii because trying to make the better decisions for my daughter. I haven't seen my daughter since she was 3 years old, and just made bad decisions along the way. And when I moved here, I thought it was a start, a new beginning, and a new start. And I fall into the same suit of making the bad decisions,
Yeah.
where I end up in the same pathway. So it affected me to where I was like, okay, well, I started to make bad decisions, those decisions, because I wanted to try to be somebody different in my daughter's life. I wanted to, you know, go back into like a custody battle and go and hire a lawyer and an attorney to represent me, and try to get her back in my life. Well, I make the bad decisions of trying to make money fast instead of just working my normal regular wage and trying to just build up, and sends me down the wrong path. And
Yeah.
that's where I end up in the in jail and not being able to provide. And then I realized, like, man, you just put yourself in a predicament where, like, you're not going to even be able to provide for her anyway. Even in the situation that you made the wrong decision. You should have just stuck by what everybody was telling you around you, and putting more effort into trying to build something instead of really just trying to get the fast, easy, quick out. Like, okay, I need to get this just to get this. And it just ends up turning into where it affects me. It affects me to the point where I start making even worse decisions. And then I just wish I had a turn back where, like, I just stopped everything and kind of went back and reversed the hands of time and try to go back. And then the regrets start to kick in. Like, oh man, like, how can I can't get back there. Like, how am I going to do this? It's not until I kind of try to reset my brain and of like what I want to do with my life and where I'm going to go with my life, and that I really start to look at it differently. I really need to start fixing myself internally first. I need to, be good with myself first before I can be good with others. I need to take care of myself first before I start taking care of anybody around me, right? And then sooner or later, that will, start to work its way in, and work my way to bettering other people around me. Is I just had to start at square one, was just working on myself and working on who I was as a person, and really trying to let go of, like, the past life and not hold grudges, and really just move on, and just find a better way to answer the questions that I had in life. There's a lot of backstory to some other things too. Is that I'm I was adopted at a young age. My real mom and dad is my well, now considered my aunt and uncle, but they're originally from the Big Island, and that's my real mom and dad. My mom and dad that I've lived my whole life with is my aunt and my uncle. So
Mhm.
my mom, after having her two kids, she had a hysterectomy and she couldn't have any kids. So my mom and her sister decide on, because I come from my real family. I come from a family of nine. I have a lot of kids, and in our family, and my real mom sees that her sister can't have any babies. So she, it's a common thing that in the Hawaiian culture is like, okay, well, if you can't have any more babies, it's like, well, I don't have that. I'm not going through that same thing, and I have a whole bunch of kids. It's like, here, here's one of our babies. Sorry, man.
All
Here's
good,
one of our
man.
babies, and just I just take care of him like he's yours. And
Hmm.
that doesn't hit me until, like, I'm like 8 or 9 years old, and and just realizing that, just hearing that from my sister, my real sister. It's like, hey, this is not your real family. This is your aunt and your uncle. It's like, I'm your sister. This is your brothers, and this is your mom, and this is your dad. And then I think that really played a toll on me, where it started all the little situations where I started to be more rebellious in life, and and it just starts to take a turn. It's, I'm sorry if it sounds like I'm jumping around
It's
back
all
and
good,
forth,
dude.
but
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
like
yeah.
I really want to make it understood that it's like, you know, even though if there's other people out there like that, you know, that you go through those things, is like it's gonna hurt you at times when you like you're realizing like, hey, you know what, the family that you spent a lot of your time with is not your real family, and you know, and
Hmm.
it's like, and then the time when you really want to engage with your family, well, you don't know how that engagement's gonna work. Like, how is it gonna affect you? What's gonna happen in life, you know? And you kind of
Hmm.
take a risk and you take a chance, and I took that risk and went to go see my real mom and went to go see my real dad and spend time with my real family, and you know, it makes me appreciate people. It just makes you appreciate who what, like, what family's all about and how family is. Because even when I wanted to run away from my aunt and my uncle that has raised me all my life,
Hmm.
and try to, you know, explore the things of like, can I go and go live with my real mom and my real dad and be with my real family, and kind of like forget about these people, like forget about these people in my life, and go back to my real family. And I realized is like, hey, you know what, man, it's like everybody's your family. There's not just one normal family that you come from. Everybody, you know, they all have the same support for you. They're all looking out for you. They all want to be there for you. And I,
Hmm.
you know, I can say that now in life, right, and speak on it. But back in the day, I didn't know how to translate any of that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just was a young kid trying to come up in life, and you know, going down the wrong paths is just because I made that bad decision. One bad decision leads to the next, and then you live in those decisions, and you keep on repeating them over and over and over, and you don't know any better. And then when people come around you, it's sometimes you see the same things in them, and you're like, well, okay, well, it's normal. I live this kind of life. He lives that kind of life. This person's living that same way. It's like, this is just normal for us to live this way, you know, especially in the islander culture. It's like it's normal to see people argue and fight at parties, and then like they forget about the things that happened to them, and they kind of just wrap right back into like their family living, and oh yeah, well, you know, who cares about last week, whatever happened then, you know. And it just kind of gets normalized every single time, and you start to see it a lot more, and
Hmm.
um and that's where like the changes start to happen, man. You make that rough decision of like, man, okay, well, is this really my life? Like, is this who I am as a person? It's like, no way. It's like, I can't do this. It's like, emotionally, you get broken down, stress wise, anxiety, all the things, depression. You know, I would sit here and be a liar if I didn't say that I didn't have those things happen to me before, you know, going through the depression stages, going through anxiety, going through stress, and in life, and just kind of just letting it crumble on me. And then I just lived in it. You know, I thought that was just the normal thing to do. It's like, and then I started doing that to others, you know. I started
Hmm.
treating other people that way and acting the same way, and it's like, when does the cycle stop? When do we really make that decision of like, hey, we gotta cut this out now. We don't have to live this way. We don't have to be this way. You can be completely different. You need to start, you know, really believing in yourself that you are different. You know, that it's not always the same story written out for every single person. It's like, you gotta make the changes. And I slowly, even to this day, right, I can't sit in front of you here and say that, you know, I am a fully built 100%, like, my mindset is strong, this is strong. It's got stronger, it's
Hmm.
got better. It hasn't always been this way, and it's still a progression. We know we're getting better as we go along, and you know, I'm learning how to control more of my anger, how to control more of my emotions, try to, you know, be a better person in life. And I think that's just from past experiences, you know, seeing things around me, and then really trying to say, hey, you know what, I don't want to keep on reliving that same cycle. I want to jump out of that, and I want to, you know, do it just not only for myself, but also to inspire others now. You know, it's like,
Hmm.
you see it a lot in the show, is that I take on this persona because I'm like, I feel like it's only the right thing to do. You know, if you ask me if I was there to chase a title, you know, in the very beginning, it's like, oh yeah, is it exciting to be on here and really go for the gold? And I just want to be, you know, I just want to be known as the person. Like, I just want to go and get that title. It's like, at the end of the day, I stop myself and I'm thinking, man, when I hear all these people's stories, they're just like me. They're just like me. They've been through the same things. They've been through the same struggles. They put themselves in the same positions, and they just don't have anybody to talk to about it. They don't have a safe space to speak on it. They don't have the guidance that they need in life to make the steps. And it's like, well, I didn't have that a lot in my life, and for me to be that for somebody else is more rewarding than being the champ. It's
Mhm.
more rewarding than holding a belt around my waist. It's more rewarding than like everybody like praising. It's like, man, you're just this awesome person, all this awesome dude. It's like, well, yeah, you speak on it, but more likely, I feel better that I know that, like, when I talk to you, when I speak to you, it comes from my heart. It comes from the person that I am, because that's who I want to be in life. I don't want to be looked at as the person of like, hey, you know what, this guy just didn't help, or he's just that, not motivational, not being able to provide for his family, things of that nature. And I look at it now and I'm like, well, I made the right decisions going on to try to get where I feel like is the right place to be. And then just believing in God. I wasn't a real person of like religious belief, but now, God has like really stepped into my life, and try to be the be the best version of myself, so that way everybody else around me can also be the best versions of themselves. And God has provided that for me. It's just he's always there. That's I think that's the probably one of the biggest things, is like, when nobody's watching, there's always
Mhm.
somebody watching. And it's him. And that's how you got to put your that's how your mindset has to be, is that there's always somebody watching you do the things that you do in life. And if that person, right, could tell you something, he would probably tell you whether you're right or wrong. Hey, you're doing this wrong. Hey, you're doing this right. It's like, so always believe that somebody's always watching you, so that way you always make the better decisions in life, instead of going down the wrong pathways and doing the wrong things. We're always going to fall to something, because obviously the world comes at us at a certain point in time. Like, it's going to attack us somehow, some way. Things don't stop, right? The world keeps on going. Everything keeps on revolving. Things happen to you, whether it's your cause or not your cause. And it's like, but how do you accept that stuff? How do you build on that? What are some of the steps that you need to take to to try to figure out what's going on with you? Right? You got to break everything down, and start from the very foundational blocks of like who you are as a person, how you were raised, where you come from, things of that nature. And then from there, you start to work your way up to like, man, you know what, well, I feel like I can do this. It's not something that is an overnight success. It takes time to be able to really dial yourself in, and realize that, like, certain things in your life that you do are, bad habits, and we're creatures of habits. So
Mhm.
some of the habits are bad, some of the habits are good. Which ones are good, and which ones I really focus on to start to create the person that you want to be. And who you want to show to the world, and the people around you. My biggest inspiration is my daughter and my son. I have a 6-year-old son named King. And being able to see these two grow, right, being able to grow into the people that they are. I don't want them to experience the same things that I've gone through in life. So I try to cut that out as much as possible. In the early years, like when my son was first born, I didn't have that. I didn't have that mentality of like, man, I just want them to have a better life for themselves. I didn't have that. I was more selfish. It was more of like that meology. I only wanted to do for myself. I only wanted to do everything around me just so that way I could be better only for myself. I didn't care about any other person. So
Mhm.
now, looking at it now, I've changed the way of my thought process, and the way that I want to see my son, and I want to see my daughter grow. The whole reason why I even got on the show was I didn't have a connection with my daughter since she was 3 years old. I've had one call from her since when she was like 10 years old. And then after that, my connection completely got cut out because of the person that I was before. I wasn't a good man, and I wasn't a good father, and I and made bad decisions. And
Mhm.
And it's completely understandable, right? That you you don't want to put a little child in with somebody that's just not having the right head on their shoulders, not the right place. It's like you can only imagine how that child is going to grow up. They're going to grow up in all this pain and all this and all this suffering and everything else. And it's like they're not. It's not because of them. It's because of the people. It's because of you.
Mhm.
You know, it's because of somebody else. And it's like they're going to grow up to just be as rebellious as you because of the way you were and the way you way you acted and the way you treated them or the way you were around them at the beginning and in the beginning stages. You know, and it's like, and when I got on this show, my main thing was to show that I can be a better version of myself, but it was also to reach out and really find my daughter. That's where my heart was, is that like the only reason why I jump on here is because I wanted to really show like, hey, baby, I didn't forget about you. And I didn't run away from you. I was just scared. I was really scared at the time, and I couldn't bring it to myself to be like, hey, you know what? Stop being so selfish and thinking about yourself all the time, and think about your daughter. Think about what's going on with her, and how is she living her life? How is she getting, like, she's getting raised by her mom and her now new husband, and they're getting raised in a totally different way. And it's like I can only imagine the thoughts that she's having when she looks around and she's like, well, that's not my real dad. She still knows who I am. It's like, that's
Mhm.
not my real dad. And and the just the feelings that she's going through. And I just wanted to reach out and be like, man, you know what, like I'm here. Like I'm here, baby. Like it's not that I can't make a connection with you. It's like I just have no opportunity to. It's like
Mhm.
there's all the doors have shut around me to where I can like really reach out. I've done the social media thing, I've done the Facebook thing, and things have been closed. And mind you, it's all in the right reasons of from who I was before. But you can't
Mhm.
you can't always just keep that same painted picture. Like, this is how I was before, and this is how I am now. It's two different people now. And I've just tried to better myself in life to try to be there for the people around me and for my family. And for a period of time, it started to be like that with my son. Is that I was searching for that love for my daughter, and now I have my son, and I'm not paying attention to him as much as I'm supposed to. I'm falling into the same pattern that I did before. Okay, now I have a beautiful boy that I need to take care of, and it's like, and he's in my life, and I just took it for granted. Like, okay, now I have a boy, and he's in my life, and it's like he's already there. Kind of just put him on the side for a long period of time. It's just like, okay, well, now that's done. It's like, and then I try to look for the love back from my daughter, and like I just started taking away from what was already present and right there, right in front of me. And it's just, it's hard to battle with all the emotions and all the feelings that you have inside, and try to tell yourself that, hey man, you're okay, you're okay. You're doing the right thing, you're doing the right thing. Because at the end of the day, we're the worst critics, right? Is
Mhm.
that is like, man, am I doing enough to provide for my family? Am I doing enough to provide for my son, for my daughter? Am I doing enough to make my relationships flourish, to be good? Am I getting good? Am I making sure that I've treat my relationships with more respect? And for a while it wasn't like that. Even with my family relationships and that, like, my spouse relationships, I just treated it like it was nothing. Like, oh, you know what? They're here today, gone tomorrow. Here today, gone tomorrow. Here today, gone tomorrow. And it's like, and then when you get into that mentality, you're only going to see yourself failing a lot of the time, because it's just, you just never accept what's going on around you. You're always putting everything away. And
Mhm.
it wasn't until I've really like made an acceptance with myself and made an acceptance with God. It's like I told him one day, it's like, man, you put me here for a reason. It's to not to sit in sorrow and be sad about all the things that have happened in your life. It's how are you going to make things better? What are you going to do differently now that you understand what's going on? What should you do next? What's the next step? Where should you start reaching out? Where do you start going? And try to expand the real thoughts of, like, man, where like, how do I really fix myself, because that's where the real fixing is. It's not, you can try to put things and bottle things lower every single time and keep on bottling, but sooner or later it's going to come up. It's really like the acceptance part of like knowing that you made the mistakes, knowing that you can do better for yourself, knowing that you can do better for others, and really just putting the effort, disciplining
Mhm.
yourself to know that, like, if you fall off from this path, it's only going to lead back down to the same things you did before that only
Mhm.
created more drama for you in your life. Stop going that way. Try to stay right here in the present, stay in the here and now. Make sure you're focusing on what's going on around you, and just try to push forward. Just try to push forward with everything.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, dude, right from the get go, I appreciate you. I thank you for opening up. I think there's a ton of learning that can be had here. I know there's a lot of people in your same situation. I mean, there's a ton to unpack. We can be here for a day to dissect the entire thing. I mean, I don't think we need to get into that.
Yeah.
But, leaving Hawaii, you had to make a critical decision. Getting here to San Diego, you had to make a critical decision, whether it be right or wrong. After, everything you went through with Delta, you had to make a decision. Talk to me about that decision making process, because one, you had to step right. You made the decision to change your life. But then talk to me about making actually, because I think there's a lot of learning that can become from this, but about actually taking that action, because you could have very easily never left Hawaii and none of this would have happened to the where you are now, getting the opportunity that you have. And hopefully this ends as you are, as you like, with the reuniting of your daughter. You've gone through 10 steps to this point to be in this situation, but you've had to take action 10 times to get there. Talk to me about that, about taking the action, and really about how that is getting you closer now to what you ultimately want.
the the biggest part is stop thinking for yourself. Like, you need to, other people have a better perspective on what's going on with you when they look, right. Everybody's looking at you and they're like, well, this is going wrong in your life, well, why this is going on. And it's really the biggest change that I get from this is where I let other people in, and being able to like see my life the way it is, the way they see it, and then also explain, just like how I'm explaining now, of like the little things that I've gone through. Those were probably the foundational parts of the actual change, is that like I had other people sit there and dissect me, talk to me about what was going on in my life, and really like bring it to light. A lot of that point in time is like we live in lies. The truth part comes out. It's like, hey, you know what, you're doing this, right? And like, that doesn't lead down the right path or the right way. And it's like those were the big foundational blocks, is that I had somebody else look into my life and see that, hey, you're a good person at heart. It's like you just make really really bad decisions. And it's like if somebody was there to help you and guide you, it would be the best thing for you, right? Is like, especially from somebody that's coming from that that learning process, right? And I feel like that's what it all is about, is that we somebody teaches us how to be that way, or we look at something and we see it and we want to be like that, and then we have to obviously study how that person is or how that person is living their life, and the people around me start to influence me, like my mom telling me about how to make, just make the better decisions. It's like, hey, you know that this is going to lead you down the wrong path, then why do it? You know that you're going to suffer after this, then why do it? Why put yourself in that predicament? It's like you don't want to be the person that's always suffering or always going through all these problems and always going through the situation. You say you want to live a happy life. You say you want to be better. You say you want to do all these other things, and you just don't do it. You're not following what you say. And it's like you're asking for these certain things and you're just not doing it. It's like, well, what's wrong? It's like, what do you need help with? And we can sit here and try to do it on our own. And like I said, we're the worst critics. So what we do on our own probably looks like it's the best thing for us, but it's probably really not. You're not getting that opportunity to be able to hear it from another person that either experienced the same things. I mean, these are older people that are telling me this. It's like they've been around. They've been around on this earth for more years than me. They've understood like the pain and the struggling way more than I have, you know. And I feel like even with what had happened to me, there's no like the struggle and the pain. It's there, but it's not really a thing. Like I made that a thing. I put myself in that predicament. I put myself in that situation, in that mindset that things were just happening to me all the time. So I think the biggest part of that is like reaching out. Stop being the person that like really just kind of sits back and doesn't want to like doesn't want it's not so much of like you don't want the help. You're saying that you want the help, but you're not doing the things that you would make you better. You're not going to the things that and you know it too. You tell yourself in your head, if I go to counseling, it's gonna make me better. But then you sit there and you go, oh, you know what? I don't want to go to counseling because then I don't want somebody to tell me who I really am. I don't want somebody to tell me who I really am as a person because you're scared. You're scared of the truth. You're scared about what's about to come out. And that person might be right about everything that person says. That person might be right. And that scares you. And it makes you trying to dial back and say, you know what? I don't want to hear those answers. I don't want to answer questions. I don't want to face my fears. I don't want to do all that stuff. I'd rather go back to what I did before. And then we just fall right back into the same place. So a lot of it has to do with like really reaching out and wanting the help. Even though as much as you want the help and you need the help, you gotta open yourself up to the people too. You gotta open your mind up to what somebody's about to tell you, because it could be the day that person mentions one thing and you take that and it resonates with you and you hold on to that. That could be the one thing that makes you make that decision of whether, hey, you know what, my life is worth more than what I thought it was. My family is worth more. My 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 emotional my emotional health is worth more. My mental health is worth more, you know, than putting myself through like that suffering of like, man, why does the world always have something out for me? Why is the world always against me? You know, I've heard something on a post on Instagram is that he was like, why me? Right? It's like, well, why not? Why not you? You were built for this. You're a warrior. You know, it's part of the learning process for you. You're gonna go through pain. You're gonna go through struggling. You're gonna go through adversity. It's just gonna happen. Things are gonna, but it's how you take it. It's how you make the changes. It's how you take the steps. And it's like the first step is to obviously the acceptance part of it. Knowing that you've done wrong, knowing that that there's something else out there that could be better for you, knowing that there's resources, that there's resources out there that people can reach out and help you, just by sitting and having a conversation. You might not think it now, but even me talking to you right now on this interview, it's helping me. It's making me grow because I get to share who I am with somebody that I don't know. I get to open up and and have an outlet of the things that have happened to me in the past, that now you get to see who I am as a person, right? And the growth and the things that have changed in my life, and the reason I made certain decisions in my life is because I just wanted to be the, a better person and a better father and a better son. I just wanted to be something better in life. And we, everybody says it, right? At this point, probably in life, if they're climbing that success ladder, is that I just want to make my family proud. I want to make my mom proud. I want to make her have a different look at me, because all my life I've provided a bad person. All my life, I've provided a person that doesn't have discipline, that doesn't have, is not regimented, is lazy. All these things. I've just provided that information. So now I'm looking at it and I'm like, man, my mom must think that I'm just this lazy person that like that I'm never gonna change. I'm never gonna get better. I'm never gonna do better for myself. And it's like, and then it hits me, and I'm like, when I start thinking like that, it hits me, and I'm like, man, I just want to do my mom proud. If she's getting older, she leaves this world, the last thing I want for her to do to leave this world is leave this world knowing that we didn't do good in our life, or knowing that we didn't become the people that we should have been or what we were aiming for. And it's like now, I'm saying this like most of recently, is that now my mom understands that like I really I'm really here to do the best for myself, for my family, and for everybody around me. I want to influence people to, obviously look inside and really find the person inside of you. And it's like, and I'm a open ear to anything that anybody has to say. I really embrace the fact that like I went through all the trials and tribulations, all the little struggles here and there to kind of build who I am today. And I let in not only other people in my life, but a higher power and a higher being, a higher belief that I didn't have before. I really put it on myself, that or myself or us as human beings, is like, hey, you are your own person, you make all the decisions, you do all this stuff. Is like, but sometimes you have to put it in a different hands, so that way you stop having that feeling of like, man, the world is always on me, it's always lifted. It's I'm having the weight of the shoulder, weight on my shoulders. It's like, you you gotta be able to open your mind to different things in life, different ways that you can, things that you can practice, things that you can train. Everybody is trainable. It's us that puts the walls up, and that blocks it out, saying that, hey, you know what, we don't need to be trained. I'm so used to being the way I am. I'm so used to being who I am that I don't need that. Who needs that in life? But everybody needs some kind of path and some kind of following, something to look up to, because that's when you look at something in that sense, it's only going to make you better, because you see the potential of somebody that's been in your shoes and now they're not, been doing the things that you've done and now they're not. There's somebody completely different. You see the change in other people, and then that drives you to change, to try to be different, and just taking the steps, really taking the steps. But first thing first is acceptance. You have to accept who you are first. You have to accept what's going on in your life first. And it's like, that's a huge part of it. Once you've done that, then you gotta break everything down, finding out the little steps in between. Well, where did I go wrong? Start to analyze yourself, really analyze yourself. Sit there and know, like, we have each other. You know you have yourself. It's like, why aren't you doing anything better for yourself? Why aren't you looking inside and seeing why I'm making these bad decisions? Why am I doing this? Well, why did I make that bad decision? Why did I go down this route? What turned it? What made that happen? You got to start analyzing those things, because those things are the key foundations of you being able to change it. Right? It's just doing the complete opposite. Well, even if you hate it, even if you feel like, oh man, prime example is the gym. Everybody wants to be fit. Everybody wants to have a nice body. Everybody wants to be like complete physically fit. But there's factors into that. Like, you got to make time to go to the gym. If you're not making time to go to the gym, you got to learn the discipline of how to do that at home. Doing all the workouts at home. It's like, you gotta put yourself in that predicament where you feel a little bit like you're taking a risk. You're scared about what it is, about the new growth, because after that it's gonna continue to progress, where you feel like yourself growing. You go to the gym one day and you feel good about yourself. Okay, you're not gonna see the results, but the next day you go back to the gym, you're gonna feel good about yourself, because you're making the run. You're not gonna see no results, but you do that over time. It's gonna make you physically fit. It's gonna make you more strong in the mind. Is that you're making those key decisions of like, man, I know I don't see the result, but I'm gonna go back in and do it again. I know I don't see the result, but I'm gonna go back in and do it again. You have to discipline yourself. It's a big part of life, is having discipline, being regimented, being able to tell yourself when to stop. Like, oh, okay, this is too much. I'm doing too much. I need to stop. I need to dial back. I need to analyze what was going on, and why do I feel this way? How do I feel this way? And what can I do better in the next steps? The next key steps, I need to make sure that those count, because that's going to shape my thought. the thought that puts me into that, okay, well, you know what, I did really good that time, and I was really good on that one performance, or I was really good doing this, for my son. And you start to put a little bit more pride into yourself, that, hey, this is I'm not that person that I thought I was. I'm this guy right here. But it starts off with that. Everybody wants to be that physically fit person when you go to the gym, but it takes the effort. You have to put in the effort. You have to put in the time. You have to go every single day. And make sure you take, it's on the other side too. You have to make sure you take days of rest. Your mind cannot always be just crunch, 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 crunch. You're gonna put yourself in a position where you're not gonna be able to handle everything in the world. You're not gonna be able to do this juggling effect for so long. It only happens for so long. As we add more balls to you throwing up and juggling, there's more possibility of you dropping. You need to really focus on the smaller short-term goals and what you want to accomplish as a person in life, and really find all the things that provide for that small term goal, and then work it. I've learned that even, I have a little bit backing of like the casino background, but I learned that in the same sense. It's like, you got to break down your little goals. If you want to win, if you everybody wants to win a casino and win daily. They want to win all the time, right? They want to come out with
Yeah,
a winning story,
of
but
course.
it's the way you do it that will make you a winner. If you
Mhm.
walk into the casino and you put down $100 and you win $100 that day, are you happy with that $100? Have you done what you came to do? Well, yes, I did. I wanted to go in here and I wanted to win another $100 and get out of here. It's the part where we make that decision of, well, is $100 good enough?
Mhm.
And then we make the bad decisions of sitting at the table, gambling more than what we're supposed to, and potentially over time, same thing in life, over time, you give it back.
Mhm.
You give all your winnings back to the casino because you think that the answer is by sitting there and putting that effort into, yeah, and not having an actual, like, a stop goal of, like, okay, this is my daily winning, I got it and I'm good. And it's like,
Mhm.
I've done what I needed to do, I've preached the word, I've done whatever it is that you're doing through the day, you've done it. Okay, we're good. Now we can kind of work past that.
Yeah.
You've now accomplished your small goal. Well, small goals stacked together equals the overall dream. Is that,
Mhm.
what we're trying to accomplish and where we're trying to get to in life is by
Yeah.
stacking all these little wins over and over and over, and then sooner or later it takes over. Your mindset changes because you're always in a winning mindset. You're always in a
Mhm.
winning mindset. The moment that you start to take little falls and failure, you will put yourself back into a losing mindset. Well,
Yeah.
let's analyze that. You made a bad decision, you went to that part, let's break that part down. Now we know that you went this far past of what you were doing, and you should have only stopped here, because that was enough for your mind to take in. That was enough for your physically, emotionally, physically. That was enough for you to take in. You don't need any more. Like, right? It's like you can't read the whole entire book all in one night. You have to read a page at a time. It's like I can't read a whole entire book and not stop and be like, man, I was reading that whole entire time. You have to take a break. You have to be able to stop and really go back in and analyze what's going on with you, so that way you can make the better decision.
Yeah. Yeah. I hear you, my man. I mean, we unpacked a lot. I mean, a million things we can talk about. I think we'll have to do a sequel to this one because I mean, we're definitely going down, a million things we can talk about. I mean, I appreciate, like I said, opening up. I think people, if they take the time to listen to this once, twice, listen to it multiple times, listen to what Pono is saying. I mean, he's walked the walk, he's talked the talk. I know a lot of people out there, and if you're in this position that can relate to anything that he has said here today, I think it's incredible to get this out there, the amount of information, the wealth of knowledge. And I think, one, you've come a long way. You've come to the point of acceptance. You've come to the point of the realization that you have to accept what happened, and you're not letting the past impact your future and what's going to happen going forward. And, I appreciate you taking the time today to join me. I appreciate everything that you've said here in this moment. Let's dissect it and let's make sure that we can, have a follow-up to this in very, very short order, because I think you've got a ton to give both in the sport as a mentor, as well as a striker, And the story for you is just getting started in life and in Power Slap. So for that, my man, I appreciate you. Much love for everything that you're doing here today.
Thank you, Corey. Thank you for the opportunity.